This segment is brought to you by JigMasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to JigMasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
Welcome to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. This is the final cast segment with your hosts Brad Hicks and Josh Eldridge, where we cast our final opinions on all products, good and bad. Welcome to the final cast. You're listening to the final cast. I'm your host Brad.
And I'm Josh. How's it going, everybody?
What's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Crazy times we're living in, but other than that, pretty good. But this segment, we are going to talk about the NRS dry suits that we've received from Loveland, Canoe, and Kayak. It is the NRS Extreme dry suit, right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay.
We picked out two colors. I looked like Bumblebee, and I look like I can't think of a blue Transformer besides Optimus Prime, and he's got red.
Yeah. We kind of got mixed up when you said I was the one that ordered blue, and you ordered yellow originally.
Yeah, but you said you liked the yellow better when we bust them out, and I didn't really have a preference, so.
Yeah.
I told you to pick your color. And you're like, I kind of like the yellow. Are you retracting on that statement now?
Well, it's the thing is, I look like Ronald McDonald on my red Kayak.
My plans were executed flawlessly then.
No.
Are you going to be mad if I yell Ronald at you?
No.
All right.
I mean, that could be my new nickname, I guess. It's whatever.
It's all right, dude. I'm going to clash because I'm going to be in a brown and white Kayak with a blue dry suit on, so.
Yeah. No,
I mean, we don't have that much time probably left really with them and when we think about it, so.
Yeah, well, hopefully not. I did get to get out and use mine Sunday, so yeah, that was nice. Got one extra trip in. But I don't know where you want to start talking about these things.
I don't know. Let's talk about like your thoughts of like the material, that sort of thing. You know, what the stuff that's made out of, what you like, dislike, anything like that, and I'll talk about my side about it.
Okay. So the material on these things, it's like I don't even know what it is. Do you know what it is? Like nylon or?
I mean, it's sort of like, I don't think it's Gore-Tex. They have Gore-Tex ones that are much more expensive, but it's a fabric that's like similar to it. You know, something it's a waterproof, breathable material. So a lot of your waders, not cold water waders necessarily, but your breathable waders that they make now that are waterproof. It's the same kind of material, maybe a little bit denser. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing, but a lot bulkier, like in a sense. It's a lot more material obviously going on, a lot more stuff, a lot more seams because it's a one-piece dry suit. So
yeah, I'm sitting here looking at the product details for it right now. I couldn't remember the name of it, but it's a three-layer triton fabric.
Okay.
Like you said, breathable and 100% waterproof.
Yeah.
So, I didn't really jump in the water. You know, I didn't want to get my feet wet. I was wearing socks under my rubber gasket foots. My feet still did get cold, and I think that's because I was wearing the wrong footwear for it. I feel like if I got a different shoe that was made to go over that, I think it'd been a little bit better. But I didn't get in the water because of that, so I didn't really get to, didn't get to feel like how warm it actually kept you, you know, if you were in the water. Yeah. I know you did get in the water though, up to your knees, didn't you?
Yeah, I wanted to test out to see how it was. That day I was wearing a pair of thin Sims wading socks, and then I had a pair of wool socks pulled over those, and then obviously the rubber gasket style booty. The booty that's on those dry suits are not neoprene. At first, I thought I was under the assumption they might be, but they're
That's
not.
the semi-dry suit is, I think,
Well,
aren't they?
I don't know. I don't know what the foot is. I know the neck area is on a semi-dry suit, but I don't know about the foot. That might still be rubber, because I know the semi-dry suits have rubber gasket wrist.
Yeah, okay.
But
I gotcha.
so I initially didn't feel the cold until we kind of got towards the end of the trip, and I think that might have been my foot didn't get wet, but I had a pair of Sims G3 wading boots on, and but no neoprene sock, and I think like a neoprene would have been a little bit better as far as warmth wise, but I'm kind of thinking that it just might have been the cheap wool socks that I was wearing. So my foot wasn't, and it was really weird. It was more my right foot than my left foot that I could tell was cold. I don't know if that's maybe the foot I tend to put in the water more when I'm getting in and out of my boat, but I checked and my socks weren't wet by any means. They were damp, but I don't think that wasn't from the water. That was from where I was sweating, because it ended up being like 50, around 50 degrees that day. And I was layered up pretty good underneath it. So I do, real quick while I'm thinking about it, anybody who is going to buy an NRS dry suit in the future, look to buying one size up. Brad and I both size wise, we're about the same height, and I probably outweigh Brad by a little bit.
40 pounds. I'm just joking.
It might be now, who knows? But I think though that we made a smart decision by going up to the XL instead of being in the large. Because I noticed our dimensions were on the higher end of the large and then the lower end of the XL. And when we layered up that day, I still had flexibility, which was kind of important because I did have a bad experience during the Turkey Bowl where I wore those waders. And when I wore my waders, I layered up, which isn't a big deal when I'm actually just wade fishing. But when I was in a pedal drive with my knees bent all day like that, it got to be real uncomfortable trying to pedal. And I could see how it would be just sitting like that in a kayak all day. It would have just felt like, you're getting your circulation cut off to your extremities or something. But that was definitely a good choice that we made. When we pulled them out of the bags, I remember looking at them and being like, dude, these things look huge.
Yeah.
But once we got them on and I saw how flexible we were, I was happy with it for sure. So.
Yeah, I was going to say something about that too. I was talking to a friend this past weekend, and I was telling him about that. I'm really glad we went with the larger size. Smaller size, I just feel like I'd get a little bit claustrophobic in there, and it'd feel like trying to get out of that dry suit would be a little bit tougher,
Yeah, definitely, because it's not easy to get in and out of them by any means. There's a method to it too.
Yeah, there is. You basically got to put the right arm in first, the left arm in, and then put the thing over your head and pull down. But it's a lot harder when you're taking it off, I think.
Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Yeah, definitely sizing up helps. I felt like there was room to move. I didn't feel like it was too much, too baggy or anything like that, or too long for me. I'm almost 6'2". The extra large was perfect.
Yeah.
The leg material wasn't dragging on the ground when I was walking or anything. So that's important because you can wear holes in the bottom of it doing that. So, size larger, that's important, I believe.
And this is also, I just want to let everybody know, if you're on the market for a dry suit and you're looking at a different brand, the different brand might run different. This is specific to NRS. Ricketts had given us a heads up because he had ordered some gear that was entirely too small for him. And he was like, you guys, if you go to do it, at least try on your first round to size up one. And so we did. We knew we could return it if needed, but luckily we found that size, did fit well And if you have the opportunity, Brad and I didn't have the opportunity because we don't have any shops near us that actually carry dry suits in stock right now, or we might now, but at the time it's kind of hard to find a shop that does. But definitely go try them on. And when you try them on, think about what kind of layers you're going to be wearing, because Brad and I were both wearing like multiple layers underneath, just because like that water is still cold. Like it sucked kind of because we were both, I know I was sweating like a lot before we even started paddling, but at the same time, I knew if I fell in, I was going to be warm, so that's key. So you'll want to take that in consideration, because that was the mistake I made when I wore my regular waders for that tournament in November, and I had the same exact layers on, but those waders are much tighter than what the dry suit is.
Yeah.
Dude. I fell in the water trying to take a pee because I couldn't bend my legs. So
Hey,
I didn't fall out of the kayak. I actually fell off the bank into the water because I took a bad step and a rock moved, and I couldn't move my knees fast enough to catch my balance. But
should we show everybody the picture of my under layers that I wore?
I'll post that up for the show post.
Yeah, we should. I'll put it right here on YouTube.
Oh, there it is. That was Brad's layering system for the day. But
it worked, man. It was very warm. I was impressed.
Yeah, it does good. It's definitely good. It blocks the wind well too. So, there's a lot of other things you do have to take in consideration. Like Brad said, his footwear was not good for it. The footwear I had was great as far as it's a full on wading boot. But I think that maybe the NRS boots, what are those called again? The boundary boots.
Yep.
I think those might work a little bit better in keeping your feet warm because they're made of neoprene. So the wading boot that I have it has no like liner in it like that. I do have a pair like the ones I brought, the wet wading ones that do, but those things are really hard to put on. Those are pretty much meant to be worn with like a thin pair of wading socks or no socks at all.
Yeah.
And that's for when the water is warm. But when you think about wearing waders, you usually have a neoprene bootie that your feet are going over like into. So those boots, normally when I wear those boots and the water's cold, I'm wearing a pair of thin wading socks, wool socks, and then a neoprene, then the boot. So I was missing a layer that I was normal or used to in a sense.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to invest in some of those boundary boots before next winter.
Yeah.
Before we get out. They look nice. They look warm. They look, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess secure. They look secure.
Well, they're old ones. A lot of people kind of complain about, but the new ones that were redesigned are supposed to be a lot more secure feeling and strap on a lot better. So,
see, I was using under the dry suit footies. I was wearing my thermal socks and then another pair of just random socks, and then the shoes I was wearing were just some slip-on Vans. So that wasn't doing anything. I don't have anything else to wear with this dry suit at the moment, so that was the only thing I had. But I could have used your boots that you had, but
they're hard to put on.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine they're hard to put on over just the sock. It'd probably be really hard on a dry suit.
Yeah, it would have worked. The thing is I don't know if you noticed, but the rubber booty part, the foot part is, like a latex. It's similar to the gaskets, and it's kind of on the big side. Like that was the one part that I was like, all right, these kind of seem excessively big.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of room still. So I think that would have been what was tricky, was trying to stuff all that like into the actual neoprene part of that shoe. So, and those things are great. I love wearing them in the summertime because I like to get out when we're in the rivers a lot. And so it kind of gives me a peace of mind of, where I'm stepping and some ankle support and that sort of thing. because I've twisted my ankle quite a few times, especially with fishing or like wade fishing. And so I, instead of rocking old tennis shoes, I started wearing boots. And I mean, even for a while, I was wearing like my waders, even in the summertime. But, it's kind of a personal preference. I know some guys will get in their kayaks and they're just rocking Crocs, but they don't really get out of their boat. So, but I like to get out often. So,
yeah, same. Let's talk about a little bit more about that, the foot stocking on there. I feel like that's an important part of the dry suit. So I'm a size 10.5, 11 shoe, and it was still a little bit big on me.
Yeah, me too.
Like you said, trying to stuff that all into a shoe is going to be a little difficult. I imagine with the boundary boot, it's going to be a little better. But, did you have any concerns about like ripping the stocking while trying to get your foot inside your shoe or anything?
No, but I could see where that would be a problem if you were putting them on, like, and you're standing in gravel and rocks and that sort of thing. So, one thing that I tend to do, just because my first pair of waders, I wore a hole in the heel of them. I don't know though what it was necessarily due to, if it was just wear and tear and they were a cheap pair of waders and it was just from like rocks being in my shoes, that's in the boots. Cause the boots I had were cheap also. They were like Field and Stream ones and they didn't even last like 4 months. They started getting cracks in them. I used to get gravel in them all the time. So not 100% sure if that's where it came from, but I have a sneaky suspicion that from where I would put those on and be standing on like a road, like just concrete or gravel or that sort of thing, and just maybe walking around. So if you do get waders or dry suits, I recommend putting down at least a towel for you to step on and change into, and try not to walk around like regular ground with them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Not, and then once you get them in the boot, you should be fine. But nah, I didn't have any issues as far as like being worried. Now, those NRS boots though, being like mainly neoprene like that, that's a lot more forgiving material than like, the I don't know if they're leather or what those G3s, those Sims G3 wading boots are made out of, but I could see the NRS dry boots or the NRS boundary boots being a lot more forgiving, just softer material like that. So
yeah, plus those boots, they zip all the way down, right? And then you can tie them.
Yeah,
I think so.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I've only seen like a pair of them in person like once. I think Susie had them on, but she had the older model on at the time. They hadn't even released the new ones yet. So
yeah, that's one thing I'd suggest. If you're putting on the dry suit, don't stand on concrete or near rock or anything like that.
Yeah.
What I was doing is I would put one foot in, and then I would put the foot that I had in the dry suit on top of my shoe, so I'm not putting it on the ground,
Yeah.
And I put the other one on, then I do the same thing with the shoe. Put one shoe on, and then that way you don't wear holes at all.
Yeah, I started carrying around an old towel in my truck all the time for that, just to be able to change and have something soft to stand on. So
yeah.
And usually what I would do is just kind of sit on the edge of my door with my door open and put them on that way. So
yeah. I was gonna mention this because David Foyt from NRS, we had him on in an episode talking about cold water gear once. He mentioned to me getting the 303 aerospace spray, and you can spray those rubber gaskets, and it's supposed to help condition them, I guess, like you would a leather.
Yeah.
So you're not so it won't like crack and stuff, like to sun exposure and all that stuff like that. So he told me to use that on the booties and on the neck gasket to help stretch it out, and it will help protect it and prolong the lifespan of the rubber material.
Yeah, that was a good point that he made, because I don't think we had talked about that in a previous episode, but let's talk about the neck gasket, man. That was an interesting 2 to 3 weeks of conversations we had going on, in which Brad was on the verge of returning it because he couldn't stand it. He kept trying it on and kept getting choked out by his dry suit. And Do you want to tell people what you had attempted to do and kind of what happened?
Yeah. Well, during the time, after we got the dry suit that week, I got sick. So, um, what I did that whole week I was sick, I put I don't have it in here anymore. I put one of those Coleman jugs. I think is a gallon. It was probably like 8, 9 inches in diameter. I stuffed that in there around in the neck gasket, and then I let it set. I let it set for probably 3 weeks. I mean, I would take it out periodically, try it on to see if it was working. I let it sit in there 3 weeks until it actually like was loose enough for me to wear. But the first time I put that on, the night I brought it home, I put it on. I thought I was going to pass out. It was that tight. And my wife was like, "You better take that off. Your face is getting really red." I'm like, "That's because I can't breathe." But yeah, I remember going. I mean, we were talking in the group chat with Paddle and Finn, and I was like, "Dude, I can't do this. I can't wear it." Jason was making fun of me. You were making fun of me. I'm like, "All right, man. Cold water fishing's not my thing, I guess." But I wore it this past weekend. I didn't have any issues except for one. So I did have my face shield around my neck. I put my dry suit on, and it was choking the crap out of me again. I was like, "What's going on?" It wasn't like 3 hours later. I didn't realize. I just realized that I had that neck gasket in there still, or the face shield under the neck gasket. I pulled it up, and Justin started laughing at me. I'm like, "That's why I was getting choked out, man." Went 3 hours with that thing right under the neck gasket.
Yeah. I see, I had a similar kind of experience when we took the boats out when it was cold out.
Yeah.
And I had this same sort of feeling too. I had stretched mine out. I went and bought this like little kickball for the kids.
Yeah.
But it was actually for me. It's just going to be there is when I'm done with it, because I need to kind of keep stretching mine out some. But what you can do, like Brad's kind of referring to, is stick something in there like coffee, if you can find one, if you can find like the old school Folgers, like cups or cans, the metal ones, stick that up in there. But you got to be careful, man, because this stuff is latex. You got to be careful with like sharp objects around it, that sort of thing, because you could see how you could easily tear into this. There's also a video out there in which somebody uses it looks like some sorbet or something like that, and they actually trim it down. I don't know that I trust to do that. I'm afraid if I trim it, that it might make it too wide and then lose its effect. But I'll kind of have to look into that and look at it like while I'm wearing it again and see if there's like room to do that. But I had that same feeling, man, when and Dave told us about that. He's like, "You guys, it's going to be super uncomfortable first few times out, and eventually it's going to break in some and it's going to stretch out." So he gave us the pointers of using that. But I stuck this ball like way up in the neckline, like kind of right in the center of the ball, just tried to stretch it out. It stretched it out some, but I think I have a little bit of stretching room still left to be able to mess with it. Yeah. But do not use heat to try to do that. That was one thing Dave stressed to us. He's like, he's like, it's super easy. Like when that thing actually starts to heat up, kind of that it'll probably melt. Like, like shortly.
Even a blow dryer. He said don't use blow dryer either.
Yeah. So, look at that some kind of lubricating spray, isn't it? Or something weird like that.
Yeah. The 303. Yeah. Aerospace. Yeah, this same stuff I was talking about a little bit ago.
Yeah.
But I think the thing I don't like the most about the gasket, even though I have it like, stretched out somewhat, is the height of it.
Yeah, and I think that's just due to the size that we got.
Oh, okay.
But I guess, that's the trade-off for it. So I'm thinking that might be shorter as you go down in size,
Yeah, I would like to try to trim it. Carefully. Yeah. I think I'd probably need to take off like an inch or two. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Definitely.
Maybe.
It's it's something I don't think I'll mess with this year. I think I'll work on stretching it out this year, and if it's not to my liking by next season when we'll need them again, then I'll look into maybe trimming it down at that time. But I'm like, man, I only got to probably maybe like 4 or 5 trips left maybe in a year where I would need to be wearing a dry suit. So
Yeah. A cool thing about the dry suits are, I feel you can wade fish with it too and be fine, you know?
Oh yeah.
So it's like it doubles as that. I mean, I don't think I would just go out and slide down banks in it and stuff, but
No, not at all. But I mean, one thing also you guys would like, if you're in the market for a dry suit, look into making sure you get the front relief zipper, aka
oh yeah.
if you gotta go, take a pee or whatever, and just don't fall in the water like I do. But that's an important feature. It's not a must, but once you try to put on a dry suit, like, and realize how difficult it's not super difficult, but it's just tricky. And that front relief zipper is pretty much a lifesaver. But that was to kind of go into that. Did you notice how heavy duty those zippers are?
Yeah, dude, they're tough to open and close. I mean,
so for you dudes out there that have like the super nice coolers, like the soft-sided ones, like I know RTIC, I have one of those. Dude, that's exactly what it reminded me of, was how kind of difficult those are. Now, the NRS dry suits do come with a bottle of like zipper lubricant, but it tells you not to lubricate the whole chain part of it. And actually kind of, or if that's what you want to call it, it kind of tells you to do the docking area of the actual zipper, if I remember correctly. But
I need to do that. I haven't done it yet, but it comes with paperwork. It tells you how to do it and what to do. So
yeah,
I need to get that done. It is a little tough to open and close without it. That's for sure.
Yeah, like it's kind of frustrating. Like I think I got tired of trying to tug on it to get closed. I was like, Brad, can you start this zipper for me, dude? And but yeah, but I mean, with that, you're like, all right, this thing's that's watertight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When you go to zip that thing, you kind of realize. But that's another important aspect, is make sure you have the zippers closed all the way, or you're gonna let water in. So
yeah, you made that the relief zipper part. I think it's, if a dry suit doesn't have that, it's a deal breaker for me, man. Because just trying to get out of that thing, and then like if you have to take a crap real bad, or you got the freaking runs and you're trying to get out of the dry suit, you're not gonna have a good time.
You're not gonna be, if you have to have the runs, Brad, you're not using the front relief thing.
Well, I know that. I'm just saying, like,
but if you attempt to, please let me know. I need to get that on video.
No, I'm just saying, like, to get out in general. But like, you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
But they do need one on the butt, though. That'd be a good idea. No, I'm just joking.
That'd be really hard. Can you imagine trying to get that zipper on your butt undone?
Yeah.
In time.
Yeah.
And then trying to put it back, and then you're like, hey, Eldridge, can you come over and zip my butt up?
No, I actually got to try out the relief zipper this past weekend, and it was a success. Even though I peed all over the zipper.
You're like, but at least I'm dry. And then Justin's like, what smells like pee? And you're like, that'd be me. That's me. I peed on myself.
No, man, it's my fish attractant. Yeah. Let's go over the wrist gaskets a little bit. Made of rubber. What'd you think about it?
I liked it. It didn't really bother me at all. It kind of actually, the one thing I had to be careful of, and this is going to looking into getting some different gloves. The gloves I wore were, they have the short fingers on them. Mm-hmm. I think they're the Cabela's. I don't know who makes them, because most Cabela stuff is just rebranded, but it's a pair of guidewear gloves, and they are neoprene sort of material, but they're not waterproof. Obviously, there's no fingers on them, but they have zippers on them. And so I was real kind of freaked out about zipping up the rubber gasket into my glove on accident and tearing a hole in it. So I had to be real careful with that. And so that'll be something I'll probably look into. The gloves aren't bad for when it's somewhat warm outside, but those gloves are bad for if it's cold. They have really, in a sense, no protection at all. So that was one thing, but those didn't bother me at all. Being on my wrists like that, I didn't have any like weird numbness in my hands or anything like that. So that was something I was worried about because I have sort of poor circulation in my hands. My hands are always cold. So I thought that those rubber gaskets would possibly make it worse. And then I wouldn't be able to feel like bites, even though I think maybe you and I got one bite that we both didn't even hook up on. It was like something hit our bait and left.
Yeah.
But that was something I was worried about, but I didn't have that sensation, no numbness or tingly or anything like that. So
I know a lot of guys complain about the wrist gaskets being too tight. I didn't have an issue. I thought it was comfortable.
Yeah.
The thing I don't like about the wrist area though was the little Velcro strap. I had a hard time having that stay like Velcroed onto the spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, onto your spot or the original spot, because they're big. That cuff was pretty big. If you just had it, did you try to tighten it up? Is that what you ended up doing?
Yeah, I did it both ways. I had it loose and I had it tight, but like there's a little circle thing where the actual Velcro strap connects to. I had a hard time getting it to stick because that little strap that little circle part it mounts onto is not like your typical Velcro piece. It's more like a rubber. I can't explain it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it's not a very big surface area either.
No.
I mean, it's just like a little, dime circle, maybe a nickel or a penny size at most.
Yeah, probably.
Like more like a dime, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I didn't even end up messing with those because I tried the same thing to tighten it up. And I tried to stick it on there once, and it just kind of popped off real easy on its own. So I was like, oh, well. Yeah. And I kind of just had it loose. But I would prefer to have that loose. You know, that's not blocking any water out, even if you have that strap tighter. You know what I mean? Because it's really the gaskets blocking the water out. So I really wasn't worried about that. So.
Yeah, the thing is, when you're sitting out on a lake that's like in the middle of country and you're reeling your rod, you hear that flap just going psh, 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 hitting against the dry suit. It was driving me nuts this past weekend, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to stay. So that's one of the cons I have about it. Not a big deal breaker at all, though.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, you're wearing it overall for safety reasons. I mean, to be completely honest with you, putting a dry suit and all that stuff is sort of a hassle. And we bought them and they were bigger, but anytime you're layering up like that, it's uncomfortable, you know? So like you've got to kind of toss all that out the window and be like, all right, is it better to be out here safe or comfortable, you know? And for me, it was about being safe. I mean, you and I talked to Mark about getting these dry suits, and you know, and you and I were like, well, we're missing out on a big opportunity to keep fishing all year round
and as much as shop.
Yeah. And so like it, you know, that's what it kind of came down to. How can we do this and be safe? And that was the answer, you know. And you know, I like it. Like Brad had mentioned before, he's used his twice now. I've only gotten to use mine once. So hopefully we'll kind of maybe revisit this here in the near future if we get out again while the water's still cold. Because I know we're still in the 40s here.
Yep, mid-40s.
Yeah, and our air temperature is still, I think we're going to top out in the next couple of weeks in the 60s still. So we're still, you know, still in dry suit weather for sure here for at least a good another month, I would say.
Yeah, even up until April, I mean, we're going to have like 60, it'll be close, but you got to take into account the wind chill factor and stuff like Ricketts mentioned on the mixed bag and stuff.
Right.
It'll be close. I'll definitely wear it still in April, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I wet weighted like in like normal kind of pants because I wet weight a lot.
Yeah.
Like I'll take little trips before work and stuff and not want to grab the kayak. And I don't think I started doing that this year until towards the end of June because of how crazy the water was. You know what I mean? And I don't like to wet wade until I can kind of see where I'm stepping. And when I say wet wade, I still wear pants. I'm not wearing waders though. I'll wear like some quick dry pants and my wet wading boots and, just a shirt and take a backpack out and fish like that. But I didn't do that until like pretty late in June just because the water was so dirty for so long and it was
Yeah.
so high that I ended up still wearing waders for quite some time. Usually sometime in the beginning of June, once that water warms up, I'll stop wearing waders, but not last year, not with how dirty and cloudy that water was. I couldn't see where I was stepping a lot. So I don't know.
Yeah.
The waders just give me this false sense of security, I guess. But I mean, it's just heavier duty, So if you rub up against some sticks and stuff like that, it's yeah, and you never know what's in the river too, hung up, especially during that season, or when you got rain like that, you don't know what's hanging off a branch, And granted, if it's sharp enough, it's probably going to cut in the wader, but it's just a little bit more material to have to go through, in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 Come across alligators on the Great Minor.
Right.
Did you hear about that story?
Them dang gators up near Troy or Piqua or whatever.
People keeping them as pets or something and then dump them in the river. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard.
Yeah, it happened, and they found it. I don't know that they have found what somebody spotted in the GMR, but
Yeah.
I know that what they did find the one that was in Twin Creek, and I don't.
Yeah.
That wasn't an alligator, but it was something related to it.
That's still crazy, but anyway, we got sidetracked there a little bit. We can get back to the dry suit. Trying to think what we could talk about.
The one thing I kind of do wish they had was some like more color options. I mean, it was just for ours, it was the blue and yellow, and I think that was it. But you kind of understand that's how you can kind of keep your business costs down. I think you're starting to see that with businesses more often, not having like these extravagant color choices unless it's a fishing lure company or something like that. But because you'll see that, even with like the PFDs and stuff like that, when you'll have like a certain color that just didn't sell well. And, if you eliminate the amount of choices, you don't have to run into having an overstock, as a company. So,
yeah, the NRS Chinook only had like 3 or 4 colors this year, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
Our dry suit was only 2 colors, right? Blue or yellow.
Yep.
I'll mention this. Everybody that follows me on social media knows that I got the red line bonafide for my boat this year. Jay Randall commented on my picture. He was like, "Man, you're not going to look like that park ranger we all said you could look like last year." And I was like, "Well," he said, "You're going to look like a search and rescue guy." I was like, "Well, dang, dude, I should have got a red dry suit and a matching red helmet and got out there on the water and acted like a firefighter or something."
I mean, dude, the yellow is pretty bright. We could probably still make you look like one if you really want.
Yeah. That we could talk about that actually being seen on the water. So Justin was a good half a mile away from me this past weekend. He said he could still see me from where I was. I could not see him. He could see me. I was wearing the yellow and I was in the red bonafide. He's like, "You stuck out like a sore thumb." I was like, "Good. That's what I want to do. That's why I bought the red."
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely good. Like, and a lot of people question whether or not like fish can see you like that, But I mean, obviously, I don't know. I have a camouflage boat, and I've come up and been seen by fish. Normally
Yeah.
that's when the water's super clear and whatnot, but you know, I'm a firm believer, like don't paddle straight into where you want to fish.
Yeah.
Go downstream and come upstream a little bit, instead of just shooting right for the area. So, I don't think you'll have that problem as much on lakes unless you're like really kind of trying to get up close and personal. But overall, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. And it's important in the wintertime for your dry suit. That's a good factor that you have, is that if, God forbid, if there was something that did happen to you and they needed to find you, you're going to be easily seen. Like you obviously, I think, would be easily seen compared to the blue one that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. They see me floating on top of the water.
Yeah. Screaming, "Get me out of here."
It reminds me of the episode of The Office where Andy's in the sumo suit and he gets pushed into the water and he's just floating all day long while they have that little company picnic. Oh, I love that. That's funny.
I'm trying to think anything else.
Well,
the
I was
cuff
gonna.
section of the boot, that was good and loose. I like that actually. Granted, Brad's maybe an inch or two taller than I am, so when he was talking about he didn't have the cuffs dragging, I could see if I was wearing boots or shoes like Brad had on, that they might drag a little bit for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know though if that section, I'd have to kind of look at the construction of it, but if you did drag, like a hole into the bottom of the cuff on the leg or at the near your foot, if that would play any part of having any leaking. And I'm going to say probably not, because I think the rubber part of the foot of the booty is up further inside the pant.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I don't think that would be an issue, but I'd have to kind of really take a look at that and see if that's a possibility, because then I'll definitely want to make sure that I'm not wearing anything where it'll drag, no light shoes, nothing like that. They'd have to be like full on boots to kind of fill out the cuff
Mm-hmm.
more. Like I didn't have that issue with the wading boots I had on, but those things are pretty beefy. So
We need to look into seeing if NRS like repairs gaskets and stuff. I don't know if they do or not. Do you?
I think they have the ability to, yes.
Because I know those things are sewn in like up inside the pant leg and down in the neck gasket. They might be able to cut that out and sew a new one in there. I don't know how much it would be. I'd like to find that out.
Yeah, I think they have the ability to repair that part, but not like, say you got a hole in the actual breathable material.
Yeah.
You could probably patch that though, like you can with waders.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they'd have, it would probably, if you got a hole in that and you had a problem, that then the dry suit would be kind of useless at that point. But I'm not 100% sure either. Yeah, but definitely if you get a dry suit through NRS, it'd be a good question to ask them.
Yeah, I'd like to get him on again anyway, because I feel like, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the group chat here. But yeah, I'd like to get him back on, just talk a little bit more about all this stuff, I mean, he's full of information on all this stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah. And we'll definitely have him, like maybe we'd look at having him back on in the fall time when we get back in the season and kind of do a refresher about it and kind of go over, because I mean, when we create content for the podcast and that sort of thing, we just had a discussion about this, like, how we're always going to try to have something new and fresh. But the problem that Brad and I will run into is that we can only talk about so much stuff that we have experiences with. We can get companies on here want to maybe showcase their product or whatnot, but we try not to do that, because we do kind of find value in being able to use the equipment and give our opinions for the average person, so but that is something that's important that I'd like to keep drilling every fall before we get into that cold water season for people to kind of keep reminded of. Because when Brad and I went out there, man, we saw some people out fishing that day, and they were definitely not wearing proper attire. Now, I am not one to judge anybody by any means who's out there, or whatever, with anything for the most part. I try not to. I know as a human being, it's really easy for us to slip into that, but I know where like my background is and stuff like that. I've done enough stupid and bad things in my life that I shouldn't really pass judgment. But to be honest, I was scared for some of the guys that we saw out there. And I'm like, dude, all they have to do is fall in, and they are in a world of hurt because they're wearing jeans and a hoodie and basically things that are sponges with water, and they fall in,
And not only does that suck for them, it also sucks for us, because then we're having to deal with helping them get out of the water, and we have the potential to see somebody die in front of us, and that's not going to be fun.
Yeah, it's just it's something that's not to be taken lightly. That day it ended up being 50 degrees, but the water temperature Brad and I got on our grass were, I think the warmest that we found was like 37.6, 37.7, something like that. And that was the highest reading that I got that day. Yeah. And so that meant that water was frigid. I mean, that's just 5 degrees above freezing basically at that point. So you hit that water, man, you're gulping for air, because just like Rick went over and it's cold water shock, man. And that's what will get you when you're not prepared. You don't have the right gear and layering on. And it wouldn't matter with layers. You need to have a dry suit on, or something that's similar to a dry suit. Even a wetsuit at that point would be much better. You're still going to be cold, but you're not going to get the shock initially, that you would have with just regular street clothes on.
Yeah. Like you said, I'm not one to judge either. I don't like, I don't know. I wear my life vest. I don't want to come off as condescending to people, because that just pushes people away from it. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I don't know. I wear mine. That's all I can do. Just lead by example, that type of thing.
Yeah. And I don't mean to sound condescending if I did.
No, I was just saying, because I know a lot of people think we are when we say stuff like this.
Yeah, we're not trying to be like that. It's just that when you get into kayak fishing or kayaking or anything whitewater like that, kayaking, there is just countless stories every year that you read and hear about where somebody drowns. And when you're a part of this community, it gets spread around a lot. There's multiple people will post about like the same incident, and you just read it. And then you comes to find out that person didn't have a PFD on or whatever, and it's just sad, because I don't want to see anybody pass away from doing something that they love, I mean, if you're going to go out, it'd be a cool way, not a cool way, but you're doing something that you love, but at the same time, you have friends, you have family that care about you, and they don't want to see anybody get, they wouldn't want to see you get hurt. And so if you make the right choices and wear the gear that's kind of uncomfortable, but it's going to save your life. Like, I'm not a big believer in the auto inflate stuff. I've heard countless stories about them not working properly, and, it's just, it is what it is. And it's just, the further I get involved in this and the more stories I read, the more important it gets each and every time. So that's why we preach this stuff. We know that getting a dry suit has a very high price tag. And for people that aren't really into kayak fishing, they can't see the justification in it. But once you start reading these horror stories of people being out in cold water, or even in the summertime, they don't have a PFD on and they fall in and drown. And, it's just, you learn that, it's not worth it. It's not worth not spending that money, buying the better PFD, or, or wearing it for that matter. You can still buy a cheap PFD and it's going to save your life. But if you don't wear it, you have it stored away, it's not going to do anything for you. It's just extra weight in that boat at that point, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna mention this stuff's not cheap. The NRS dry suits we're talking about, the extreme models, $800, I believe, right?
Yeah, $7.99 retail, something like that.
Yeah. Stolquist, they have a dry suit called the Easy dry suit, and it's about half that price. I believe you can get them on Amazon for like $325. It's a semi dry suit, so it has the neoprene gaskets and all that, which I keep hearing from everybody is a lot more comfortable than rubber. You're not sacrificing much with the neoprene gasket either, from what I'm told. So, yeah. I mean,
you have the potential to still get wet, but it's obviously if you've worn neoprene before, you do know that it takes a while for water to kind of get through. So it's an option out there. It's a more cost effective. Even the one that one of the ones that NRS carries is significantly cheaper by a few $100s, I think. But keep this in mind too. In season, when it gets cold, especially in I think I saw them in November to December, all those dry suits went on sale. So if you're in the market for it, pay attention in the shopping season. That I think they had them up to possibly, if I remember correctly, I saw 20 to 25% off. That's a big chunk of change, man. If you're looking at $800 dry suit, that's dang near $200 off of it. And you're getting a heck of a deal for that, because the dry suit that Brian and I have is like a middle price range. There's ones that go up, I think in the $1,200-$1,300 range that have, made of Gore-Tex and that stuff. So
I think that's the ones the search and rescue guys wear too.
Yeah, probably. But it's definitely something. It just adds that extra security, I guess, to be able to get out there and, be comfortable in the cold water situation. So, mind you that you still have to layer up. These things are not insulated by any means. So, with that being said, don't forget to layer up, and layer up properly. So, if you have questions in regards to that, feel free to reach out to NRS. They have great people that work with them that will share any information on how to properly layer up, or even hit up like your hunting buddies, hunting guys. They know how to layer up properly like that too. So
yeah, you can even listen to the podcast we had, because we went over that.
Yep.
I think that was back in November, October, November. So it was somewhere around there.
Yeah, look for the David Foyt NRS episode, and that'll shed a lot of light on it. And there's plenty of videos out there too on YouTube about cold water kayaking and what to do in cold water and that sort of things. There's tons and tons of information out there. Just don't become a statistic for it. So it's not worth it. Even when you think the weather's breaking and it's warm enough, but that water definitely isn't. So I mean, I stuck my hand in that water and I couldn't keep my hand in there for more than like 10 seconds. So
it was cold, man. It was real cold.
I mean, I we were talking about our feet being cold, and that shed some light that I need to get some better quality wool socks for sure. As soon as it was towards the end of the day, and it was just my foot felt crampy. You know what I mean? Like my toes were kind of stiff and stuff like that. It wasn't something I couldn't deal with. I've dealt with it before, but I think we only fished for like 4 hours that day, 4.5, 5 hours maybe.
Yeah.
And, I could see if we were out there a little bit longer, it'd start to get pretty uncomfortable. But, that's just, it stinks because, the better quality gear is going to cost you. But in the long run, a lot of times that better quality gear is built to work and to last longer too. Those socks that I wore that day I couldn't find the good ones that I had, and I just grabbed. I was like, I shouldn't be bad, and they didn't work as well as my other ones do. So
yeah, yep, some good info there, man. It was a good episode. You start winding it down. We're getting close.
So hopefully Brad and I just sold the Kusa, so hopefully here in the next week or two I'll be able to get some GoPros going for me and Brad on some of these trips, and I'm hoping to get a little bit of footage of me and Brad trying to squeeze our butts into these dry suits. Because that picture you took of me trying to fit one over my head was priceless, by the way.
I need to pull that one up real quick. We need to use that for this episode too. We should. Here, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Cause right here. Come on, there we go.
Did you see the comments on the post my friends made? They're like, you look like when Ace Ventura squeezed it out of the rhino.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
So,
oh man.
But that was kind of, I felt the same thing about that neck gasket as you did. It rides up high. I think it's just because there's an excessive amount of gasket for the size of people that we are, but I think I'll deal with that as opposed to being too constricted by the actual dry suit overall. I liked having the multiple layers, especially if I get a pedal drive in the near future. I might think that's having that extra leg room and not being so constrictive is going to be key. So,
yep. Well, I agree, man. Overall, I think that suit's awesome. Very comfortable. Once you get it broken in, man, you're good to go.
Yep.
I think the one last thing I do want to mention is, I got to give a shout out for Josh Smith, because every time we talk about the dry suit, he goes, Brad, what's rule number 1? What did I tell you? He said, always to look cool. And he says I do not look cool in a dry suit, so I just got to give him a shout out for that, because I think of him every time I put it on now.
All right, every time that we do that, we should start snapping pictures and posting them to him. Like,
yeah,
we'll let him be cool, and we'll be the uncoolest kayakers out there we can be. That's our goal this year.
He can be the cool guy. We'll be the guy that catches the fish. I'm just joking. He actually killed it the other day.
Did he?
Yeah. But all right, guys. Thanks for listening to another segment. You got anything else, Josh?
Nope. I think I'm good, man.
All right. Guys, please stay safe out there. Stay healthy. We're in some crazy times right now. Keep your families safe, healthy. It's important. You guys have a good weekend, good Friday, good Saturday, Sunday, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Go check out the website, guys. Paddle, the letter N, and fin.com. Also check out YouTube, youtube.com/paddle and fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest, feel free to email us at paddle, the letter N, and fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're doing giveaways, announcements, things like that at Facebook and Instagram at paddle and fin. Shout out to our show supporters: Rocktown Adventures, Loveland Canoe and Kayak, Hammered Lures, Fish Mob Lures, TRC Covers, Ketch Products. Go to ketchproducts.com. You could put the paddle and fin logo right on your catch board. Don't forget to go over and pick up your JigMasters Jigs. Use promo code PNF20 and save 20% today. Don't forget to rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. It helps grow the audience, helps others find our podcast. So please drop a 5-star rating in on the podcast platform you're listening on. Don't forget about the recycled plastics program, you guys. Take your used plastic baits, put them in an envelope, mail them to the address in the show notes. Our man Eric Richards at Hammered Lures melts those down, makes new baits, and donates them to various chapters of Heroes on the Water.